Multiple samples tends to be the most confusing part of the coding process. Hopefully you've read through this explanation of multiple samples in the syllabus at least a few times. It is also here in the Qualtrics survey for you to reference while you're coding articles. We'll go ahead and break down this information for you so it's a little bit easier to understand with some examples. Starting with this only one sample section. Most of the research that you'll come across while you're coding will only have one sample of which demographics are reported for and data is collected from. Such is the case with our religious coping article. We have a homogeneous sample of 107 Asian American undergraduate students that has data collected through a survey, and there's only one set of demographic information that is reported in this article. Sometimes articles will present demographics or data from two groups, but there will still be one sample of participants. An example of this would be a research article that collects data from school-aged children, but also has a short interview or collects a small amount of data from parents. The information that could be collected from the parents, usually income and level of education. This isn't used to create a separate analysis of parents. It is used to accompany the analysis of the school-aged children sample in giving socioeconomic information. Essentially, when we look for multiple samples, we're looking for two things. A study reports collecting data from multiple groups, and or studies will report demographics separately for the two groups or samples. Our first example will be hospitalization for underage drinkers in the United States. In this study, data is taken from the nationwide inpatient sample data set, is narrowed down to adolescents, and then is differentiated into two samples based on alcohol use disorder cases and non-alcohol related cases. If we scroll down in the article, we can see demographics reported separately for these two subsamples from the data set. This will be multiple samples. Our second example, cognitive flexibility and theory of mind outcomes among foster children. In this study, we have the participant section, which lists demographic information separately for the children and then the parents. Here we have data that is collected from two groups for an analysis. This will be multiple samples as well. One exception to these two main guidelines will be longitudinal studies. They'll collect one sample at time 1 for their study, and then use that same sample again at a second time, time 2. Time 2 will be different due to attrition and other factors. Even though demographic information may be reported for the sample at both times, it is still the same sample and not two different groups of participants. So in articles that have multiple samples, we will select there are multiple samples. Again, for our religious coping article, we only have one sample to report demographics for, and then we go on to select participant type. In the rare case that there is no demographic information listed, we will select this option. When multiple samples is selected in the survey, it will ask why. So for our cognitive flexibility example, we have there were parents and children in the study that both had data collected from them. In our hospitalization article example, we have multiple samples that are broken down between types of inpatient hospitalizations. We will type in the information briefly, explaining why we selected multiple samples, and then move on to participant type.